Hey guys, and welcome to my review of 28 Years Later. I got back from theater a few hours ago. I saw a fan screening at a local AMC theater in my area, and I had a lot of fun with the movie. However, I had a whole script that I just wrote up and I was going to read from, but I've been sitting here and just staring at the script, and I think I'm just going to give my honest, unscripted thoughts when I can and refer to my script to just back up any points and to not go too much off topic. Honestly, the movie was fine, if I'm being honest. I liked it, but that's kind of where it ends. It comes nowhere close to being as good as the first movie, and while I don't think any of us were expecting it to be that good, I was expecting something more. I feel like the trailer we got didn't accurately advertise the movie we got. I thought it was going to be a lot more desolate and horror filled and quiet, kind of like the first movie, but I just feel like there was a lot of things in this movie that detracted from the horror, but I still had a fun time with the movie. At the end of the day, I like this movie enough to where I would still recommend you go see it in a theater and make your own opinion on it. So with all that out of the way, let's get into some spoiler-free reviews. This movie isn't as good as 28 Days Later, like I said originally, but it is better than 28 Weeks Later. I did not like 28 Weeks Later. I saw both 28 Days and Weeks literally like a week and a half ago, so fairly recently for the first time. And if I had to rank all the movies, I would go 28 Days is the best, then 28 Years, then 28 Weeks. But yeah, no, it was an okay movie. 28 Years was a good follow-up, and I liked it enough. There was more good than bad in this movie. I just wish... Let's get into the actual movie so I can break down my thoughts. So, the characters were all really good. I genuinely liked every character in this movie. The kid, Spike, was great. The dad was even really good. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson actually gave a really good performance. The mom was fine. I just feel like she didn't have enough to do, but the Jodie Comer did a lot with the role, and I thought that honestly, all the performances in this movie were great. There was this one comedic role of like a Swedish like Navy guy who actually worked really well. Like my entire theater was like laughing, me included, and it wasn't like he was there as like a joke character or like as a way to alleviate tension during like stressful scenes. No, it was like during like a calm, quiet scene to like show the disconnect between Spike, who spent his whole life basically isolated from technology in the modern world, and this Navy guy who just it was stranded and in the wrong place at the wrong time. Honestly, this is the one an aspect that 28 years later does way better than 28 weeks later. This is a guy who just happens to be in like the Navy rather than this like big macho like military man who's like 10-4 good buddy, bogeys over to the left. Feels less like Call of Duty characters and more like this scared kid who wanted to commit his life to something and just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Alpheus, I definitely think like gave the best performance in the movie. I genuinely liked his character, and I think his character was done in a way that I was just so surprised by, but not in a bad way. It didn't detract from the movie. I think it was actually better the way his character was done. Just know I liked all the characters except Aaron Taylor Johnson's like up until like the very end. He gets shafted really early, by the way. I'm not gonna lie. I don't care if this is a spoiler or not, but Aaron Taylor Johnson's character is like taken out of the story like a bit after a third of the way through and doesn't show up again till like the end of the movie, and it was really disappointing. And next, I want to get into the action. I like the action a lot, actually. I wish there was more, and I wish the action was a bit scarier, but I think the action we got was really, really good. I think like this movie did fix some of the other issues I had with like 28 weeks later, where I felt like the characters were too safe with like all the automatic weapons and heavy military firepower and everything. These characters are just like stuck with bows and have to run and everything. And when they're running through the fields and forests and have to like take place in these abandoned houses, it's really scary. Like this movie actually has a lot of tension, and I just loved it. There were also like different designs and variants of the zombies, which were really cool and given a lot of nice world building. but it's not really explained as to like where they come from or why there's like different types of zombies. But just know I love the action, and my main complaint is that I wish there was more. The locations and set pieces in this movie are also like really well made, and even like some of the more computer like elements like the CGI are hidden really well, except for this one scene where there's like a herd of deer running through a field. That looked kind of bad in my opinion, but like it was just one like short part of the movie that didn't really detract from anything. That's more of a nitpick if anything. I think all like the locations were cool, like the different forests and houses and abandoned buildings and like the other claustrophobic areas, especially the boneyard. The boneyard was so cool, and I just wish we got to see more. But I feel like with the next movie being called The Bone Temple, you know, we're gonna see more of that kind of set piece. But yeah, this movie, the location and the action and the characters, I didn't really have an issue with. What I had an issue with, unfortunately, was the story, and I feel like that's a big problem. I think the story is not bad, but the weakest part of this movie, if I'm being honest. I think the movie we were advertised in the trailers just was not the same movie we were given, and I feel like we kind of got baited a little bit. And so while I didn't dislike what we got, I think like the version I had envisioned in my head would have been better. So my final thoughts for the spoiler-free section is that while 28 years later isn't a bad movie by the standards of this franchise or other zombie media, I just feel like there were a lot of aspects and tonal areas of the first movie that I wish were captured or used more here. It's well known that the first movie was heavy inspiration for like Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, and you could easily see that in a lot of stuff, like the zombies like running and the noises they make, and like the abandoned and quiet cities. And I feel like that just wasn't captured here. Like this movie didn't have the feeling of isolation and mysterious abandonment that the first movie had. I would wish that there was like one scene in the movie where like the characters went through like a town or part of a city, like this quiet, desolate, abandoned like area that is usually like so busy and full of life, because most of the movies just takes place in forests and fields where like you're not expecting any life. It's kind of normal for there to be nothing out there. And there really just wasn't as much horror as I wanted or expected, and the trailer just gave off a completely different vibe than the movie I saw. So I don't hate this film. It doesn't come nowhere close to matching the quality of the first movie, and I would give this movie a 7 out of 10. In comparison, I would give 28 Weeks Later a 5 out of 10, and 28 Days Later a 9.5 out of 10. So let's get into spoilers now. I'm going to start with the story. So, the story. The first third of this film is what the trailer shows off, with Spike and his father going through the mainland. I'm going to tell you guys right now, for the spoiler part, I did script this more than non-spoiler stuff. So, Spike and his father go to the mainland in the UK because it's a tradition for children to hunt and kill infected as a sign of, like, growing up. They do accomplish this. Spike gets his first kill, his first zombie kill, and it's with this new type of bloater zombie that like crawls around and is really quiet and like squeals like a pig when you shoot it. And it's just really cool. It's really cool, and I love the cinematography for the kills and everything, and it's cool. The first third of this movie is genuinely amazing. Like I would easily give the first third of this movie like a 10 out, like a 9 out of 10, just there wasn't enough horror elements to it. But then after killing the zombie, they go around, they look at the different wildlife and explore the area, where they are then ambushed by a horde of zombies and this new zombie called an alpha, who is bigger, stronger, and smarter than the other zombies. So honestly, all these zombies were pretty cool, and just the action scenes were so stressful. Like all the different action scenes, like Spike and his father getting chased, and Spike and his mom getting attacked and everything. It's so cool. It's really cool. So after they get chased, Spike and his dad are trapped in a house and have to wait until low tide to get back into the island. And trust me, this makes a lot of sense. And while they're hiding out in the house during the night, the herd of deer come back and cause the house to collapse with their stampeding, causing them to have to make a run for the mainland, where the alpha chases them and is killed by the village. And that's where this section of the movie ends. Spike and his dad make it back safe, and they celebrate Spike's journey. The other 2/3 of this movie is Spike taking his mom to the mainland to find this doctor and find out why Spike's mom is sick. And she's revealed to be sick very early on. She's very forgetful and but also has a lot of rage and anger. And this led me to think that Spike's mom was going to be revealed to have dementia or a special variant or strain of the virus, kind of like the other mom in 28 Weeks Later, but it's not that, and I'm going to get into that soon, but it wasn't that, and I feel like what Spike's mom actually had just didn't hit me as hard, because I feel like what they set up and what they paid off just didn't match. But going back into Spike and his mom's plot, I just don't feel like that's what the movie was advertised as. I genuinely thought that this movie was going to be Spike and his dad being trapped on the main island, forced to fight and fend for themselves, and throughout the movie Spike would learn to be more independent and his bravery and courage would grow throughout the movie. But instead we kind of see that through Spike going against everyone's wishes, his dad's wishes, and taking his mom with him instead, not telling anyone. So most of the characters are great, but they did something with Spike's dad that writes him out a third of the way through the movie, and I just wasn't a huge fan of. I feel like it wasn't necessary for the story and what they made Spike's dad do, but it's more of a nitpick than an issue with the movie itself. But I feel like they just didn't need it. So let's get back into the other 2/3 of the movie. The journey with Spike and his mom wasn't bad. I thought it was pretty neat. The action was cool. Spike's mom was a good character. Spike continued to be a good character. I just preferred the first third of the movie. Eventually, Spike and his mom, though, after being ambushed by zombies in a field, they are cornered at a rest stop and saved by this Swedish Navy guy who was the sole survivor from a tunnel attack. And this guy has a lot of funny back and forth with Spike, where Spike is this kind of caveman trope where he's been raised in this isolated area, away from technology in the modern world, and this guy was at the wrong place at the wrong time, but he's familiar with all this tech and using modern lingo, and it's really funny. It goes on for only 5 minutes and doesn't really detract from the tone or the pacing of the movie. In fact, it actually makes it sadder when things happen later in the movie. Anyway, huge spoilers for the rest of this review, by the way. I'm going to get into big plot reveals and character deaths and the ending of the movie, so stop watching if you still want to go in as blind as you can. So Spike, his mom, and the Navy guy all find this infected woman who is somehow pregnant and gives birth to a non-infected baby, which weirded me out and made zero sense. Something like this has never been established, and I feel like they just wanted something shocking for the sake of being shocking, and I'm just like, what are you doing? What does this have to do with anything? So now there's this random baby with them now, and the Navy guy dies because he thinks the baby's infected, and he's going to kill Spike, his mom, and the baby. But then that another alpha shows up, and he kills the Navy guy and starts chasing Spike and his mom, and he's about to kill Spike until Ralph Fiennes, he comes in and he tranquilizes the alpha and takes the three of them back to his boneyard place, which again, really cool set design, and it's revealed that this guy is the doctor who they were looking for. So his boneyard is also it has a purpose. It's memento mori. It's a way to celebrate life and death and remember those who are gone. And Ralph Fiennes' doctor character, I'm just calling him the doctor. The doctor talks to these characters, and he runs tests, quote unquote, on Spike's mom, and reveals she has cancer. Now, I read in reviews before that the movie got sad with the family and emotion type, but I talked to some people after the movie, like these random theater goers, and we both agreed, like we all agreed that the cancer revelation just didn't hit for us, because we all thought that this was going to be dementia. Like we thought the mom was going to have dementia, and I think if they actually revealed dementia, it would have been a lot sadder. But the cancer diagnosis, it just feels like it came out of nowhere. So anyway, the doctor ends up tranquilizing Spike, and I thought this was going to lead into a twist where the doctor was like a really bad guy and he was going to like cannibalize the two of them. But no, he tranquilizes the kid so he can so the doctor and the mom can give the mom a nice peaceful death before the cancer or the zombies can take her. And it's really touching, actually. I'm not gonna lie, the stuff with the mom at the end, it was touching, but I feel like it didn't hit as hard for me as it was supposed to. And so the movie ends with Spike sending the baby back to the island, while Spike remains on the mainland, continuing to further his independence. And that's almost it. But let me get into a few other points before I get into like the actual ending. So the movie was good still. All right, it's like a solid 8 out of 10 at this point for me. There wasn't enough horror, and I think I would have preferred if it was just Spike and his dad stuck on the main island. But what we got was fine. Not what I was expecting, but a decent enough follow-up to the first movie that leaves me excited for the sequel. I appreciate that Ralph Fiennes' doctor character wasn't revealed to be like this twist villain that I thought they were gonna go for. He was actually a pretty chill dude that like wasn't actually insane that the main character was led to believe in. And yeah, like I said, this movie and ending would have been fine. It would have been 8 out of 10 for me. But the very end, the last 2 minutes, were so out of nowhere and batshit insane that it genuinely made me lower the score by an entire point. But I guess it could be just easily ignored up until the sequel, because it does seem like that this ending is setting up the sequel. So I'm not holding anything back. These random Teletubby acrobats come out of nowhere and help Spike defeat this horde of zombies by doing ninjutsu and acrobats and karate chops, and it's so weird and tonally inconsistent that I was just left confused, laughing, and weirded out by the end. It came out of nowhere, it clashed with the entire rest of the movie, and is being used to set up the sequel, and I'm just so sorry, but this movie should have ended with Spike just running away from a horde of zombies. It would have been fine. Or hell, have Cillian Murphy come out of nowhere and save Spike for just a bit of fan service. I'm actually shocked with that fact that there was like no fan service in this movie. Like I wasn't expecting it. I was hoping there wasn't, but I was genuinely caught off guard. Like, wow, movie, good job. You didn't like do any needless fan service. It felt like a nice standalone story that's set in the same universe as 28 Days and Weeks Later. Now, I feel like the second part, the Bone Temple, is definitely going to connect more 28 Days. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. This movie was good. I do recommend seeing it in theaters, and I hope you all have a fun time. I'm definitely looking forward to the sequel, The Bone Temple, coming out in January. I would give this movie a 7 out of 10. It has more good elements than bad elements, and I like the good parts enough while the bad parts didn't really bother me too much. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the flip side.